Hi everyone, welcome back. I hope you're having a lovely day. You join me in the kitchen because today we are going to be making some oat milk. I've been practicing this recipe over the last week and trying various things to see if I can come up with a recipe that I think really works. It's really easy, really affordable, and I'm going to share it with you today. Now you might be wondering why this is something I wanted to do, and quite honestly the main reason is because I am on a journey to becoming more sustainable, and I personally feel that being able to create my own milk product that can be used in various recipes or just to drink as milk is something that is going to benefit me in the long run and be more sustainable. There's one thing I want to mention, and that is if you are buying a carton of whatever type of milk it is, or juice, or whatever it is, if it comes in one of these cartons, just be sure that you check with your local recycling, because despite the fact that on the carton this says that it is widely recycled, as do many milk and juice cartons, it all depends on the area in which you live, and where I live this is not considered a recyclable item. I'm not 100% sure why. It might be to do with the plastic coating that's on the inside, but our guidelines for our recycling in our local area is that these cannot be recycled at the curb and that these have to go in with general waste, which I did not know. And in the past I have tried to recycle these and was absolutely shocked to find out that they couldn't be recycled because I hadn't checked clearly with my local collection guidelines, meaning when I was putting this in the recycling it was contaminating the recycling because we don't recycle them where I live. So please just check, because for us this isn't an item that we can recycle anything in a carton, which means if I can start making my own oat milks and cut out having to buy milk in a carton that cannot be recycled, then that is one less product and one less item that I am putting in the general waste. So for me it's really important that I can create my own milk, so I'm no longer purchasing these cartons. For this recipe, you are not going to need an awful lot of ingredients. You are going to need some oats, some water, and then some sort of way to flavour or sweeten your oat milk, depending on how you like the taste. If you just have oats and water, that is going to be quite a bland taste, and you probably want to add something to sweeten it up. I'm going to be using honey today and a vanilla extract to flavour my, what I would call plain, but I suppose it is vanilla oat milk. And I'm also going to be giving two other flavours a go, and I thought I'd stick with the classics and do a chocolate flavoured and a strawberry flavoured just to see how they turn out, and I'm really excited to give those a go. For any variation that you decide to do, the basic initial recipe is exactly the same, and then if you wish to add something to it for a flavour, then you absolutely can do that at the end, which is what makes this recipe so easy. Over the last week I have been trialling out different things to see what works best, because having looked online I have seen loads of different recipes that do things all quite similarly but in slightly different ways. So for example, one of the big ones is whether or not to soak your oats. This is entirely up to you and will probably depend on the brand of oats you are using. Some recipes suggest that you don't soak them at all, some suggest that you do 15 to 30 minutes, and some suggest that you soak them overnight. And all claim to do different things. I have seen recipes that say don't soak your oats because it makes them slimy when you pour out your milk, and some say do soak your oats because if you don't it's slimy. So I would say give it a go and find out what works for you and the products that you are using. Don't be disheartened if the first time you do it it doesn't taste quite as you'd like. Maybe you just need to change something slightly and try it in a different way. Personally, for me, I have found that not soaking the oats was the preferred outcome for me. I thought the taste was better when I didn't soak the oats. So I'm not going to be soaking my oats, but you are more than welcome to if you want to. I also find it quite convenient knowing that I'm happy to do it without soaking my oats, which means if I wanted to make this recipe out of the blue without having to put any prep time in, I can just go right ahead and do that, and it's a really quick job. So let's get on with it. I do not have a fancy blender, I just have a very simple smoothie maker, which I'll show you in a moment, and so the largest bottle that holds is this big. If you want to scale up to a larger quantity, then just take the quantities I'm using today and scale up as you need to. So what you need is quite straightforward. You're going to need some rolled oats, some water, and then some way of sweetening and possibly flavouring your oat milk. You're also going to need a blender, probably some measuring cups and spoons or a scale, and a nut milk bag. It's really simple and I'm going to show you how to do it now. The blender I'm going to be using today is just a very simple Breville smoothie maker, and it doesn't actually come with a jug or anything like that, so it's not got a large capacity. You simply blend into the bottle that you would either drink or serve the oat milk out of. And these are great because then I can just pop this straight in the fridge and store it immediately in there without having another jug to wash up. But as I said, a smaller capacity. So if you are using a bigger container and you want to make a larger volume of this, just scale up the quantities that I'm using. I'm going to start by doing 1 cup of the rolled oats. Remember, I'm leaving those dry and I'm popping those straight into the container I'm going to be making the milk in. Now, my quantity of oats may seem quite high. A lot of people do 1 part oat to 3 or even 4 parts water. I do 1 part oat to 2 parts water, so I'll be adding 2 cups or 500 millilitres of water to this. And for the final part, I'm just going to add my sweeteners and my flavorings. So I'm going to be using a vanilla extract just to give it a bit of a more vanilla flavour. You don't have to do this. This is the one I consider more my plain version. I will put in some vanilla, which I do about a teaspoon of. And for the honey, I would say anywhere between a tablespoon or 2, depending on how sweet you like it. So that's entirely up to you. So 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And with the honey, I really do eyeball it and just go for between a tablespoon and 2. So I'd say that's about 1. That's about 2. And remember, you can taste this as you go along. So if it's not sweet enough, you can just add to it. And then I'm going to blend. I'm just going to shake this up just so it starts to get all mixed, so my oats don't all get stuck up at one end. And then just blend until all the bigger pieces seem to have broken down. I am going to strain it anyway through a nut milk bag to get rid of any lumps. Next, we are going to strain this through our nut milk bag. Now, if you've not got a large bowl, you can just try and strain it back into your jug that you had the water in, but it can get a little bit messy. So it can sometimes help to strain it into a larger bowl and then pour it back. And go ahead and pour it all straight out. As I said, I will be storing my oat milk in these containers, so before I put it back in here, and if you are doing a similar thing, just give this a rinse, because obviously it's still going to have some oaty bits in there, and if you're looking for a really smooth consistency, it's worth giving this a rinse before you put it back in. It's entirely up to you what you decide to do with the pulp afterwards. Some people make it into soap, some people make it into cookies. I've not worked anything out for that yet. That's not something I have looked into, but I will be in the future to minimise that waste. But just get absolutely as much as you can out of there. Now, if your blender's done a pretty good job, you might find there's very little pulp left in the bottom here. So as you can see, there's still a little bit in there. It doesn't look very nice when you're done, but that's this all finished. If, like me, you have strained your mixture into a bowl and you want something with a spout, you can always transfer this back into here to help you pour it back. Entirely up to you. Use what you've got. And there you have it. That's my recipe for oat milk. I prefer to leave this in the fridge for a few hours before drinking, just because for me, I like my milk to be really, really cold and not sort of the temperature of the water that's been sat out on the table as you've made it. And don't forget, it's had your hands on it as you've strained it, so that will warm it up slightly as well. So personally, I like to pop this straight in the fridge and leave it for a few hours to chill. And very quickly, just if you're looking at creating some sort of flavoured milk that is more adventurous than vanilla, then I'm going to do a couple just here now, really quickly. For the chocolate one, I'm still going to be putting in a teaspoon of vanilla and a tablespoon of honey, just to give it that sweetness, because the way I'm creating the chocolate flavour is to use cocoa powder. Just be aware, cocoa powder is not sweet like chocolate. It's not the same as, let's say, a hot cocoa mix or anything like that. If you're not overly familiar with using cocoa powder, just don't go mad. You might find it to be a bit rich. So I'm just going for a ½ teaspoon in this size container. In the strawberry one, I'm going to be just flavouring that with strawberries. Now, if you don't want to use fresh fruit, that's absolutely fine. You could use, I've got some on hand here from baking, a strawberry flavouring, and if you're really bothered about the pink look of it, you can even put some red food colouring in if you really want to. It depends on your preferences and if you sort of like to use colourings and flavourings, or if you prefer to use natural ingredients. If you are at all worried about the consistency of this one, if you're worried it's becoming a bit too much like a smoothie, remember we are going to strain it through a nut milk bag once we are done, so that will thin it out and make it more of a milk consistency rather than a smoothie. And there we have it, our 3 flavours of oat milk. We've got the vanilla, the chocolate and the strawberry for you to enjoy. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up as it really helps me out. And as always, if you're not already following me on Instagram, please go and check that out, and I will see you in the next video. Take care guys, thank you for watching, bye.